The alarm clock chimed at 5 a.m., just as it did each day. Mariana extended her arm to switch it off before it disturbed Santiago's slumber. With weary eyes, she gazed at her 6-month-old baby slumbering serenely in the tiny crib beside her bed. He managed a smile, even through his fatigue. With the child's father having deserted her upon learning of the pregnancy, each day became a struggle for survival. He sprang to his feet to prepare himself. The gray cleaning uniform was neatly pressed and prepared. Employment at the Montenegro mansion offered superior compensation compared to other positions, yet the expectations were numerous. While she gathered her hair into a neat ponytail, her phone buzzed with a notification. "I deeply apologize, Mariana. I'm unwell and won't be able to look after Santiago today." The babysitter's message sent a chill down her spine. This marked the third occurrence within the month. She reached out to her neighbor, her cousin, and even the woman at the store, but none were able to assist her. The relentless ticking of the clock pushed Mariana to make a choice born of urgency. I would bring Santiago to work. Half an hour away, in the city's most prestigious area, Nicholas Montenegro completed his morning routine in the private gym of his luxurious mansion. At 38 years old, he upheld unwavering discipline in every facet of his existence. Under his leadership, the family business flourished, emerging as one of the most significant enterprises in the nation. Yet, achievement came with a cost. While his assistant outlined the day's agenda, his blue eyes roamed over the flawless decor of his residence. Everything was arranged flawlessly, precisely how he preferred it. In the 3 years since the divorce, Nicholas had cleared away any personal belongings that could evoke memories. The mansion, while opulent, mirrored the same chill that he exuded in his professional dealings. This afternoon, his assistant announced that the contract with the Japanese is prepared for signing, presenting him with a folder. "Just a reminder that you need to approve the new budgets tomorrow." Nicholas acknowledged with a subtle nod. His existence unfolded through a succession of gatherings, agreements, and strategic choices. There was simply no space for anything beyond that. In the meantime, Mariana rushed toward the mansion, cradling Santiago in her arms and carrying a small backpack filled with her belongings. He slipped in through the service door, hoping fervently that Mr. Montenegro had already departed. "Hail Mary, most pure!" cried Carmen, the housekeeper, upon catching sight of her. "What is that young one doing here? Have you lost your mind?" "My babysitter cancelled, and I had no one to leave him with," Mariana said, her voice filled with desperation. "I promise it will just be for today," Carmen said, shaking her head in concern. "Should he discover this, you will be dismissed immediately. Distractions can really get in the way, can't they?" "I'll store it in the utility room," Mariana assured. "No one will pay attention." The contrast between their realms was unmistakable. As Nicholas sat in his glass office, making choices that impacted countless employees, Mariana found herself tidying up the remnants of her breakfast, her heart racing with each footstep she heard near the room where Santiago was left. In the early hours, Mariana successfully guarded her secret. "In every spare moment, I rushed to the nursery to hold the baby, nourish him, or attend to his diaper needs." The cramped space had turned into a makeshift refuge, yet he understood that he couldn't sustain this arrangement indefinitely. The day unfolded smoothly, until, in the afternoon, as he was tidying one of the main hallways, a cry pierced the air, sending chills down his spine. Santiago must have stirred from his slumber. Without a moment's hesitation, he dashed toward the utility room. As she cradled her baby, she felt his warmth enveloping her. A sudden fever had brought him to tears, and nothing he tried appeared to soothe him. In a moment of urgency, she led him to the kitchen in search of a damp cloth. Her concentration on reducing his fever was so intense that the sound of the front door opening went unnoticed. Nicholas Montenegro, having come back earlier than expected because of a headache, froze in place upon hearing the sound of crying. He traced the noise to the kitchen, where he discovered his employee cradling a baby. "What is the significance of this?" he inquired with a cutting tone. Mariana remained frozen, holding Santiago as he wept in her embrace. Their paths had just crossed in the most disastrous manner imaginable. "Sir." Montenegro, I hesitate, bracing for the inevitable. "My babysitter backed out, leaving me without anyone to care for him. He is experiencing a fever and—" Nicholas's blue eyes were locked onto the baby, his expression a mystery waiting to be unraveled. For a fleeting instant, a crack appeared in his typically icy stare. To Mariana's astonishment, rather than brushing her off right away, Nicholas merely let out a sigh. "Keep the child away from me until you can secure an appropriate babysitter," he finally stated, turning to exit. Mariana remained motionless, struggling to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. What was stopping him from letting her go? The question lingered in the atmosphere as she cradled Santiago, unaware that this moment would alter the course of their lives eternally. 3 days had gone by since the incident with Santiago, and Mariana remained in disbelief that her job was still intact. Each morning, she made her way to the mansion, anticipating Nicholas's call to his office for their farewell. However, that was not occurring. In a bid to ensure safety, she entrusted Santiago to a neighbor willing to look after him for a while, despite the financial strain it imposed on her. As she polished the windows of the main room, Mariana caught a glimpse of her boss, engrossed in his laptop, from the corner of her eye. Nicholas Montenegro remained a mystery to her and to all the staff, perpetually serious and perpetually aloof, as though an unseen barrier kept him apart from the surrounding world. "Carmen mentioned that you're having issues with your babysitter." Nicholas's voice shattered the stillness, catching her off guard. "Indeed, sir," Mariana replied, taken aback that he was addressing her. "I'm in search of a long-term solution, but it's challenging to locate someone whose rates fit within my budget." Nicholas acknowledged her with a nod, his gaze fixed intently on the screen before him. "Should you ever need to bring it, feel free to utilize the room adjacent to the laundry area. It offers improved airflow." Mariana nearly let the rag slip from her grasp. Did his superior grant him the go-ahead to include Santiago? "Are you certain, sir?" he boldly inquired. Nicholas furrowed his brow, as though he had blurted something out impulsively, provided it didn't disrupt your efforts. He rose and exited the room in silence, yet Mariana observed that his hands were tightly balled into fists, as though an internal struggle was waging against that choice. 3 days later, the neighbor interrupted Mariana's day with a phone call. "I was unable to keep looking after Santiago. His daughter had succumbed to illness." Mariana sensed the heavy burden of hopelessness pressing down on her. Her income was hardly sufficient to meet essential costs, and hiring a new babysitter would require more funds than she had available. During his break, he explored various options, reaching out to several individuals but to no avail. "All prices seem excessively high," she murmured softly to herself, weary. At last, with no other options available, Mariana was compelled to return the baby to the mansion, this time placing him in the room that Nicholas had recommended. The day unfolded smoothly, without any issues. Santiago exhibited a remarkable calmness, as though he grasped the delicate nature of his mother's circumstances. As the evening settled in, Mariana busied herself with dinner, following the cook's guidance, when suddenly, the sound of her son's unmistakable laughter reached her ears. Startled, she dashed to the room where she had left him. To his astonishment, he discovered Nicholas positioned by the slightly ajar door, observing Santiago, who was chuckling as he engaged with a small teddy bear that he couldn't recall having given him. "Mr. Montenegro, pardon me," he said quickly, "I'll guide you elsewhere." "It's not needed," he responded, his gaze fixed on the baby. "He has a contagious laugh." There was a certain quality in his voice, maybe a hint of sadness, that caused Mariana to scrutinize him more intently. For the first time, he observed subtle lines forming around his eyes, indicators of weariness that transcended the mere physical realm. Santiago, seemingly aware of the gaze upon him, turned his gaze to the door and stretched out his tiny arms, his little hands opening and closing as if yearning to grasp something just out of reach. Mariana held her breath, anticipating Nicholas's discomfort, yet he responded with a barely noticeable smile. That evening, as she completed the task of serving dinner, Nicholas caught her off guard with a surprising question. "Where is your father located?" Mariana felt a sudden tightness in her muscles. He preferred to keep it to himself. Upon discovering her pregnancy, she departed, offering a succinct reply. "He has yet to reach out to me again." Nicholas nodded slowly, contemplating the information with a thoughtful expression. "Do you wish you hadn't done it?" inquired. "Detain Santiago?" For the first time, Mariana offered him a genuine smile. "Absolutely not. It's the most incredible experience I've ever had." A peculiar yet soothing quiet enveloped them. In that fleeting instant, they transcended their roles, becoming two individuals connected by a rare moment of sincerity. "You can take it whenever you find it necessary," Nicholas finally remarked. "Maintain the order, please." "Thank you, sir," she said, keeping her voice steady. Once the house had fallen into a deep slumber, Nicholas quietly pulled open the drawer of his nightstand. Buried beneath a stack of papers, I discovered a photograph that had long been forgotten. A woman beamed at the camera, her pregnancy evident in her rounded belly. He tenderly caressed the image with his thumb, enveloped in memories that still stung as sharply as they did on the first day. In her room within the service area, Mariana was tucking Santiago in for the night, her mind occupied with thoughts of her boss's peculiar actions. In his gaze, there lingered an enigmatic blend of fascination and sadness upon seeing the baby, emotions he found difficult to comprehend. What mysteries lay hidden beneath Nicolas Montenegro's unyielding exterior? She pressed her lips to her son's forehead, filled with appreciation for the surprising act of empathy. Perhaps he pondered as he switched off the light, there was a depth to his boss that others had yet to uncover. In recent weeks, the atmosphere at the Montenegro mansion has shifted in subtle ways. Mariana occasionally brought Santiago along when she lacked someone to look after him, and to her surprise, Nicholas appeared increasingly at ease with the baby's presence. One morning, Mariana discovered a package resting on the table in the room that belonged to Santiago. Upon opening it, he found a baby monitor alongside a small pocket. Though there was no note, he was fully aware of who had placed it there. Nicholas had once again left something for Santiago, marking the third occasion of such an act. Initially, it was the teddy bear, followed by a collection of clothes, and now we have this. "The man is transforming," Carmen remarked as they got lunch ready. He had never shown such fascination for another person before. Mariana remained silent, her heart swirling with a blend of appreciation and uncertainty. The once stern and distant man who had employed her gradually began to reveal a more approachable side, particularly in Santiago's presence. That evening, Mariana toiled away into the night. He needed to complete the organization of certain documents that Nicholas required for a crucial meeting. Santiago rested soundly in the makeshift room as she toiled away in the office. Out of nowhere, the baby's wail caught her off guard. He cast a glance at the clock. The clock approached 10, and I found myself adrift in the passage of time. He sprang to his feet, but just as he was about to depart, he noticed the weeping begin to fade away. Upon entering the room, he came to an abrupt halt. Nicholas stood there, cradling Santiago with an unexpected ease. The infant, typically unsettled when cradled by someone unfamiliar, appeared entirely at ease in her embrace. His delicate fingers clutched Nicholas's tie with intensity, as Nicholas leaned in to speak to him in a hushed tone. "Take a deep breath, dear child. Your mother is occupied at the moment, yet she will arrive soon." Mariana paused, savoring the stillness, reluctant to break the spell of that moment. Witnessing a figure of such strength tenderly cradle his child was profoundly touching. "Pardon me, sir," he finally remarked. "The passage of time escaped my attention." Nicholas turned around, his demeanor calm and composed, showing no signs of embarrassment or discomfort. Tears streamed down my face. "The monitor I left you was functioning," he stated plainly. Feel free to complete your current task. I will remain with him for a little while. There is no necessity. I am capable, and I firmly assert my position. He cut her off with a tone that allowed for no argument, yet lacked the typical severity. Mariana nodded and made her way back to the office, her curiosity about her boss's behavior growing stronger. Carmen observed the unfolding scene from the hallway, her face etched with concern. As Mariana walked past her, he gently grasped her arm. Exercise caution, my dear, he murmured. If he becomes overly attached, it may lead to pain for both you and the child. What are you referring to? Mariana inquired, her brow furrowed in confusion. Carmen shook her head in disbelief. I may not be the one to say it, but there are scars in this home that time has forgotten. That evening, as Mariana finally gathered Santiago to head home, she discovered Nicholas nestled on the small couch in the room, the baby peacefully resting on his chest. The picture rendered her utterly speechless. He has your eyes, Nicholas remarked softly, and your smile. Thank you for looking after him, she replied, extending her hand to take the child. Nicholas delicately passed it to him, their fingers grazing momentarily in the process. An unusual hush enveloped them, heavy with unspoken thoughts. I can't quite grasp why his presence impacts me so deeply, he suddenly whispered, it's more about him than about Mariana. Her gaze met his with a hint of astonishment, yet she chose to hold her tongue. Nicholas inhaled deeply before proceeding. My wife and I welcomed a son into our lives. He entered the world ahead of schedule. He lasted only a few hours. Mariana sensed her heart constrict. In an instant, clarity washed over me. The chill, the fixation on structure, the initial reluctance to accept Santiago's presence. Nicholas Montenegro was not devoid of emotions, rather, he was a person who had shielded himself too effectively from them. I deeply apologize, he whispered, feeling at a loss for words. She couldn't move past it, he continued, as if she had to release those words she had held inside for so long. He held me responsible for dedicating so much time to work during the pregnancy, for my absence when the complications arose. Perhaps he had a point. A month following the funeral, he requested a divorce from me. Mariana embraced Santiago tightly, overwhelmed with a deep sense of gratitude for having her son safe and sound. Not everyone can endure a loss like that, he said gently, but you remain. Nicholas gazed at her as if he were truly seeing her for the first time. At times, I question whether I truly exist or if I'm merely playing a role, he replied, his candor catching her off guard. Good evening, Mariana. As she strolled to the bus stop, cradling Santiago in her arms, Mariana's mind was consumed by Nicholas' revelation. In an instant, everything fell into place. His aloofness, his fixation on dominance, his early dismissal of Santiago's existence, and now, his increasing fascination with the infant. For the first time, he perceived Nicholas Montenegro not as the fearsome superior, but as a man who had endured more than anyone ought to endure. In the weeks that followed, significant transformations unfolded within the Montenegro mansion. What had once been a shadowy and quiet space was starting to resonate with Santiago's laughter and, from time to time, Nicholas' subtle smile. Mariana had at last discovered a trustworthy babysitter. Yet, intriguingly, Nicholas discovered justifications to invite Santiago to the mansion a minimum of 2 times each week. He mentioned it to ensure you capture the essence of the moment. Ah, the babysitter certainly deserves a moment of respite. Unquestioned justifications that Mariana embraced, as she recognized the way her son's presence altered the mood of that home. On a leisurely Sunday afternoon, Nicholas caught her off guard by inviting her to linger a little longer. It was peculiar that he required it on a weekend, yet he maintained it was for a unique project. Upon their arrival with Santiago, Nicholas stood in the backyard, awaiting them. What is going on here? Mariana inquired, her eyes wide with wonder as she gazed at the tiny inflatable pool and the colorful toys strewn across the lawn. It's quite warm, Nicholas responded casually. I assumed the boy would enjoy a chance to refresh himself. Santiago, now 8 months old and crawling with newfound determination, was clearly thrilled by the vibrant scene before him. Mariana felt a warm smile spread across her face at the delightful surprise. There was no need for you to go through the trouble, sir. Nicholas corrected her. When we're off the clock, I'd appreciate it if you used my name. The afternoon unfolded like a scene from a different world, where Mariana transcended her role as the domestic employee and Nicholas shed his persona as the stern businessman. Two adults reveled in the infectious delight of a baby joyfully splashing in the water. As Santiago engaged with a rubber duck, Nicholas settled beside Mariana, finding refuge in the cool shade of a tree. I believe he enjoys my company more than yours, he remarked with a teasing smile, a gesture that Mariana had never witnessed from him before. She chuckled, a peculiar warmth blossoming within her chest. That's because you don't need to reprimand him when he gets into trouble. I could learn, he replied, his tone carrying a weight that drew Mariana's gaze to him with keen interest. As their gazes intertwined for a fleeting moment, the world around them appeared to dissolve into nothingness. Mariana experienced a shiver that coursed down her spine. What was unfolding between them? Whatever it was, it held an air of danger, an impossibility that grew more compelling with each passing moment, making it harder to dismiss. The facade of normalcy persisted throughout the afternoon, only to wane as the sun dipped below the horizon. As they collected items from the garden, Santiago let out a yawn, feeling worn out from the effort. I ought to bring him home, Mariana said. Today has been quite a whirlwind for him. I can handle them, Nicholas offered. It's getting late for them to catch the bus. It's truly not essential, to be honest. I must insist, he interjected softly. The thought of them being alone at this hour fills me with unease. The journey in Nicholas' opulent vehicle was quiet yet oddly soothing. Santiago drifted off to sleep almost instantly, serenaded by the gentle hum of the engine. Upon reaching the unassuming structure that housed Mariana, she became acutely conscious of the disparity between their lives. I appreciate all that you've done, he said while gathering Santiago and his belongings. Today has been truly delightful. Nicholas observed her with a focus that left her breathless. I feel the same way, he confessed. Beyond your wildest dreams. They parted ways, an unspoken assurance lingering in the air that more afternoons like this awaited them. Thus, it came to be. In the weeks that followed, their connection evolved into an enigmatic bond, more than mere hierarchy, yet not quite friendship, charged with an unspoken tension that lingered between them, unacknowledged. One evening, after Mariana had tucked Santiago into bed in the room that had become almost exclusively hers within the mansion, she encountered Nicholas in the softly illuminated corridor. They found themselves in solitude. The majority of the personnel had already stepped down from their positions. Each day, he resembles you more, Nicholas remarked, gesturing towards the boy. Everyone says that, she said with a smile, though he definitely inherited his father's stubbornness. It must be challenging to raise him on her own. Mariana gave a subtle nod. Indeed, I would select it repeatedly without hesitation. They exchanged glances, a quiet understanding passing between them, and the atmosphere shifted subtly. Nicholas advanced a step closer to her, bridging the gap that separated them. Mariana sensed her heart quicken. He lifted his hand, pausing briefly, before softly caressing her cheek. Time appeared to stand still. Nicholas inclined his head gradually, allowing him the opportunity to depart if he desired. Yet Mariana remained still. Their lips brushed together in a hesitant, almost anxious kiss that swiftly evolved into something more profound, more intense. Years of solitude and suffering appeared to fade away in that connection. As they finally separated, both of them were panting for breath. Nicholas pressed his forehead gently against hers, his eyes shut tight, as though he dreaded the moment he might awaken from this enchanting reverie. Please, tell me this isn't a mistake, he murmured, his voice thick with an unexpected fragility. Before Mariana had the chance to reply, a sudden noise accompanied by a loud bang jolted him. As they turned, their eyes landed on Carmen at the end of the hallway, a tray scattered at her feet and a look of sheer astonishment etched across her features. The atmosphere had shifted. Yet, what had begun that evening was now beyond their control. The journey began with a sensation of lightheadedness. As Mariana prepared breakfast, the world around her began to whirl and sway. For days, she had been unwell, but she linked it to exhaustion and the strain of her intricate new circumstances with Nicholas. Following the kiss in the hallway, they both made an effort to maintain a facade in front of their colleagues, yet it was evident that a shift had occurred in their relationship. The secretive looks, the hushed exchanges, the serendipitous meetings in the garden while Santiago played, all wove together a delicate cocoon of joy that Mariana dreaded might shatter at any instant. "How are you feeling today?" Nicholas inquired as he observed her pallor at the breakfast table. "Oh, I'm just a bit worn out," she fibbed, managing a smile. Yet that afternoon, as I tidied up the library, the dizziness surged back with even more intensity. His vision faded, and the final memory that lingered before darkness enveloped him was the echo of books tumbling to the ground. He stirred awake in a hospital room, surrounded by the relentless beeping of machines echoing in the sterile air. As she attempted to rise, a steady hand held her back. "Please, stay still," Nicholas's voice was tight with concern. Santiago slipped from his parched lips, the name lingering in the air. "It's all right, Carmen is looking after him," he said softly, tenderly stroking her hand. "Why didn't you let me know you were unwell? I never imagined it was something significant." The door swung open, revealing a doctor whose expression was grave and intense. Upon careful examination, he validated their worst fears. Mariana faced a grave infection that necessitated urgent care and an extended stay in the hospital for several weeks. A few weeks. Fear was evident on his face. "I am unable to, my son. I will look after Santiago," Nicholas asserted with conviction. "Concentrate on getting better." Mariana felt the urge to voice her dissent, yet fatigue overwhelmed her resolve. With tears glistening in his eyes, he gave a faint nod before slipping back into a troubled slumber. The initial days posed the greatest challenges for Nicholas. Even though she had formed a unique connection with Santiago, providing him with constant care presented an entirely new set of challenges. Carmen provided assistance throughout the day, yet it was he who rose at night whenever the boy's cries echoed through the darkness. One morning, as he gently rocked Santiago back to sleep, Nicholas discovered himself humming a cherished lullaby that his mother had sung to him in his childhood. The infant gazed up at him with wide, deep-set eyes, reminiscent of Mariana's, and in that moment, after so long, Nicholas experienced a profound sense of belonging. "Let's go look after your mom, all right?" he murmured to the young child, who replied with a joyful gurgle. As the days unfolded, an unspoken change took root within the Montenegro mansion. The spaces that were previously ruled by chill and meticulous arrangement now bore the delightful chaos of toys strewn across the floor. Nicholas's office had transformed into a makeshift playroom, featuring a small crib beside his desk, allowing him to work while keeping an eye on the child. Carmen observed the transformation with a blend of wonder and apprehension. "I never imagined I would witness the gentleman in this light," he remarked to the cook as they busied themselves with Santiago's porridge. "It feels as though he's transformed into someone entirely different." "Love transforms individuals," the woman replied with a knowing smile. "That child has accomplished what no one else could, thawing the frost that encased his heart." Nicholas made it a point to visit Mariana in the hospital each afternoon, bringing Santiago along so he could spend time with his mother. He shared with her the strides he had made, how he had started to pull himself up using the furniture, how he was already reacting to his name, his fresh, slurred speech. On one of these visits, as Santiago played with a stuffed animal in the hospital bed, Nicholas shared a photo on his phone with Mariana, capturing the baby sleeping peacefully on his chest, both nestled together on the living room couch. Carmen captured this image yesterday, he said, a hint of bashfulness in his smile. He claims we dozed off in that position after dinner. Mariana's eyes brimmed with tears, not from sorrow, but from a profound sense of gratitude. The sight of her son nestled securely in Nicholas's embrace stirred an indescribable emotion within her. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice quivering, "for looking after him, for everything." Nicholas grasped her hand softly, his fingers gliding over hers with tenderness. "He has given me something I thought I would never have again," she confessed quietly, "a purpose beyond work, a reason to wake up every morning with joy." They exchanged glances in silence, the unspoken words lingering in the air, resonating deeply between them. Nicholas bent down and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, a gesture brimming with tenderness that made Mariana feel as though her heart could explode. As the moment arrived to part ways, Nicholas lifted Santiago, who let out a brief protest at being away from his mother. Before exiting the room, he paused at the door, gazing at Mariana with a fervor that rendered her breathless. "You don't have to face this alone anymore," she whispered, and in those heartfelt words lay a commitment that would change their lives for eternity. As she observed them depart, Mariana came to understand that, even though she was in a hospital, momentarily separated from her son, she had never experienced such a profound sense of solitude in her life. After 3 long weeks in the hospital, the long-awaited day for Mariana to return home had finally come. Seated in the wheelchair mandated by hospital policy for her release, she anxiously awaited the nurse as she finalized the final paperwork. His heart raced at the sight of Nicholas emerging in the hallway, cradling Santiago in his arms. The young child, upon spotting his mother, reached out his arms with great enthusiasm. "Mother!" he exclaimed with clarity, a fresh term he had acquired during his time away. Mariana's eyes welled up with tears in an instant. He rose from the chair, ignoring the nurse's objections, and embraced his son with every ounce of strength his frail body could muster. Nicholas observed them with a grin, his blue eyes radiating warmth like never before. "Let's go home," he said simply, and that word, home, carried a new weight this time. To Mariana's astonishment, the vehicle veered away from her modest apartment and headed towards the Grand Montenegro mansion. "I was under the impression you were going to drive me home," she remarked, puzzled. "The physician indicated that you require attention and relaxation," Nicholas replied. "Assistance will be available around the clock at the mansion. I have already set up a room for you and Santiago." Mariana felt the urge to voice her defiance, to assert that she was capable of managing her own affairs as she always had. Yet, deep down, she grappled with the undeniable truth of her lingering vulnerability. Moreover, the thought of being near Nicholas, witnessing his interactions with Santiago, enveloped her in a comforting warmth she was reluctant to let go of. Upon arriving at the mansion, he found that one room was, in fact, a complete suite adjacent to Nicholas's master bedroom. It was fully stocked with all the essentials for her and Santiago, featuring a brand new crib, an array of toys, fresh clothes, and even a cutting-edge baby monitor. "I truly appreciate everything you've done for me," Mariana expressed that evening after tucking Santiago in for the night. "Your efforts surpass what anyone else might have accomplished." On the quaint balcony of their room, they sat together, savoring a cup of tea. The evening air was filled with the fragrance of blossoms from the garden, while the moon softly cast its glow upon their faces. "I didn't do it out of obligation," Nicholas replied, his tone gentler than normal. "Santiago and you have restored something to me that I believed was gone for good." The following days ushered in a fresh routine. Mariana had transcended her role as just a domestic employee, she now held a complex position within the household and in Nicholas's life. The staff observed with intrigue, yet refrained from voicing their thoughts on how their superior shared breakfast with her and the child each morning. He would spend afternoons in the garden with Santiago, playing together, while their nightly conversations on the balcony would stretch into the late hours. A week after his return, as they shared dinner in the main dining room, a scene that seemed unimaginable just months prior, Nicholas posed a question that had lingered in his thoughts for days. Have you considered what your plans will be once you are fully healed? Mariana set the fork aside on the plate, a sudden knot tightening in her stomach. He had tried to push it from his mind, the unavoidable moment when he would have to face his reality once more. I suppose I'll return to my apartment, she replied with a hint of hesitation, and resume my duties if you still require my services as your housekeeper. Nicholas gazed at her, weighing his next words with deliberate thought. And I require your assistance for more than just tidying up this place. Mariana felt her heart race with intensity. What precisely was he implying? Nicholas, These months, he cut in, have been the happiest I've experienced in years. Caring for Santiago and being with you made me confront everything I had been evading. He rose from his chair and moved closer to her, kneeling beside her seat to match her eye level. He grasped her hands gently, and Mariana sensed a subtle quiver within them. Caring for your son has revealed to me the depth of my loss and the intensity of my longing, he admitted, his voice trembling with feeling. A family, Mariana, a life filled with connection and warmth beyond mere work and solitude. She sensed the tears poised to cascade from her eyes. It was overwhelmingly perfect, strikingly sudden, and intensely captivating. Our worlds are so distinct. He murmured, affirming the dread that had lingered from the start. You are Nicholas Montenegro, and I am merely the girl who tidies up your home. You are the one who showed me how to embrace my feelings once more, he replied with conviction, the mother of an incredible child who helped me mend scars I believed would never fade. I am indifferent to your origins, all that matters is your desire to share in my life. That evening, once Santiago had drifted into slumber, Mariana discovered Nicholas on the terrace, lost in thought as he gazed at the stars. He moved quietly, pausing beside her. In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped them, both content to inhabit the same space without uttering a word. Thank you, she finally said, for everything you've done for us. Nicholas turned to look at her, his gaze piercing through the shadows. I should be the one expressing my gratitude, he responded. Caring for Santiago opened my eyes to what I genuinely desire in life. Mariana moved in, her heart racing with anticipation. What is it that you desire? The air was thick with tension, brimming with emotions that had been held back for months. Nicholas bridged the gap, tenderly cradling her face in his hands. This time, when their lips met, there was only certainty and resolve. The kiss conveyed unspoken vows, hinting at a future once deemed unattainable, yet now felt tantalizingly close. As they finally parted, Nicholas leaned his forehead against hers, his eyes shut tight, as if savoring the essence of the moment. Please, tell me this isn't a mistake, she murmured, her voice laced with a fragility that had remained hidden from everyone else. Mariana cupped his face in her hands, compelling him to meet her gaze head-on. If this is a mistake, he said with a grin, then it's the most exquisite one I've ever made. That evening, beneath the shimmering stars, they both dared to dream that their contrasting worlds might, in the end, unite as one. A realm where Nicholas' tumultuous history and Mariana's challenges were merely the journeys they needed to undertake to discover one another. The ensuing months unfolded like a vivid dream, one from which neither Mariana nor Nicholas wished to awaken. The connection that started with uncertainties and anxieties evolved into something exquisite and enduring. The mansion, once shrouded in cold shadows, now radiated with vibrant life and inviting warmth. Initially, they shielded their relationship from the world, aiming to spare her from prying eyes and hurtful remarks, yet it quickly became unfeasible to conceal the undeniable truth. The way Nicholas gazed at Mariana, the brightness that filled his face when Santiago dashed towards him, calling him Nico, and how their hands instinctively sought one another in close proximity, all of it unveiled a love blossoming with each passing day. They'll have their opinions, Mariana remarked one evening, reclining beside him in the garden as they observed Santiago engrossed in his block play. They will claim that my intentions are driven by your wealth or that your motives are for. Nicholas interrupted her with a kiss. What do you say? He replied, exuding a sense of unshakable assurance. What truly matters to me is how you and Santiago feel. Initially, the staff exchanged whispers when Nicholas began inviting her to dinner, yet none of them had the courage to inquire. "Since when does Mrs. Mariana sit at the main table?" one of the cooks murmured. Carmen joked, "Since Mr. Montenegro looks at her as if the sun rose and set on her," though a hint of caution laced her words. What began as a hidden truth slowly evolved into an accepted reality. Mariana transitioned from her role as housekeeper to embrace her new identity as Nicholas Montenegro's partner. The shift sparked whispers in the social and business realms he frequented, yet for the first time, Nicholas realized he was largely indifferent to the opinions of others. Santiago, now nearly a year and a half old, adjusted to the new circumstances with the effortless grace that only young ones can muster. Nicholas had always been a steady and affectionate presence in his life. Encountering him daily, resting beneath the same roof, enjoying shared breakfasts, baths, and bedtime tales, only deepened a connection that had started to take shape since their initial encounter in the kitchen. On a serene Sunday morning, as they enjoyed breakfast in the garden, Santiago made his first unassisted steps, wobbling from Mariana's embrace to Nicholas's waiting arms. The man's face lit up with joy, tears streaming down as he lifted the child into the air, celebrating the achievement. It was a moment that confirmed what Mariana had already sensed. Nicholas was more than just his partner. He had truly embraced the role of a father to Santiago. As the child drifted into a peaceful slumber that night, Nicholas wrapped his arms around Mariana from behind, both of them gazing at the moon from the balcony of their room. "I never imagined happiness would find me again," he admitted softly. "After losing my son, I constructed barriers so formidable that I believed no one could penetrate them, and we didn't even attempt to dismantle them," she replied with a smile. "We simply encircled them." Nicholas chuckled gently, pressing his lips to her neck. "You and Santiago not only enveloped my barriers, you rendered them obsolete." Yet, amidst the joy that enveloped them, Mariana started to perceive transformations within her body. Initially, there were moments of dizziness, followed by overwhelming fatigue, and ultimately the morning sickness that I attempted to conceal. I was familiar with these symptoms. I had encountered them previously. One afternoon, as Nicholas engaged in a crucial meeting and Santiago enjoyed his nap, Mariana secluded herself in the bathroom with a pregnancy test. The moment stretched on endlessly, a blend of anticipation and trepidation swirling within. As the positive result finally emerged, his hands trembled with anticipation. An infant. She was anticipating the arrival of Nicholas's child. The initial delight swiftly transformed into unease. What would his response be? Did your journey through fatherhood carry significant emotional scars? Are you prepared to confront the prospect of becoming a father once more? Or might the dread of experiencing your loss again be overwhelming? For days, Mariana held on to the secret, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the news. He observed Nicholas engaging with Santiago, contemplating the transformations that would unfold once he learned about the impending arrival of the new baby. At last, one evening after tucking Santiago in for the night, Mariana discovered Nicholas in his office, poring over some papers. He moved forward with caution, his heart racing in his chest. "May we have a conversation?" he inquired, his voice quivering. Nicholas glanced up at once, catching sight of her unease. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" Mariana inhaled deeply, seeking the perfect expression. "I have something important to share with you," she started, taking a seat across from him. "A matter of significance." "You're frightening me," Nicholas said, grasping her hands. "No matter what comes our way, we will confront it side by side." "I'm expecting," she finally exclaimed, watching his response intently. "We're expecting a little one." Nicholas's expression became rigid. In a dreadful instant, Mariana was gripped by the fear of the unimaginable. "No," he whispered, retreating a step. "Nicholas." He shook his head, attempting to dispel the clutter in his mind. He raised a hand to his face, clearly moved. "Last time," she whispered, her voice trembling, Mariana felt a lump in her throat. He moved closer, gently covering her hand with his. "This time it will be different," he murmured. "This time we are united." Nicholas shut his eyes for a brief moment. He inhaled deeply, and when he opened them once more, the fear that had previously consumed him was replaced by something entirely different. Hope. "A baby?" he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, as if uttering the words might cause the reality to vanish. "Are you certain?" Mariana affirmed with a nod, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Absolutely safe." Nicholas rose and enveloped her in a fierce embrace, nearly lifting her from the ground. As they pulled away, Mariana caught a glimpse of the turmoil swirling in his gaze. There was joy and hope, yet beneath it all lay an unmistakable, profound fear that was impossible to conceal. "I'm scared," he admitted, leaning his forehead against hers. "I understand," he interjected softly, "and it's perfectly normal to feel that way. I feel it as well, but this time will be different. This moment we share is profound." Nicholas rested his hand on Mariana's belly, a gesture imbued with such tenderness that it took her breath away. "I lost a son once," he said, his voice steady yet laced with emotion, "but I won't lose this one. This time, I will make the right choices." That night, nestled together in bed, they envisioned their future. They discussed names, how they would share the news with Santiago about his soon-to-arrive sibling, and how they would convert one of the rooms into a delightful children's space. "I never imagined my life would unfold this way," Mariana admitted. "When I found out I was expecting Santiago and his father left me, I believed we would always be on our own." Nicholas wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "They will never be alone again," he vowed. "From this moment forward, I will always be your sanctuary." As they drifted into slumber, Mariana reflected on the peculiar and enchanting journey that life had crafted for them. One day of desperation, marked by the secret arrival of Santiago at the mansion, altered their fates irrevocably. Pain and loss, it seemed, could pave the way for an unforeseen yet profoundly healing love. Thus, in the embrace of the man who had transformed from her distant employer to the love of her life, Mariana drifted into slumber with a smile, envisioning the future they could now create together. The afternoon sun enveloped the garden of the Montenegro mansion in a warm, golden glow, transforming the scene into something reminiscent of a fairy tale. A year had slipped by since that pivotal night when Mariana revealed her pregnancy to Nicholas, and their shared life had flourished like the vibrant roses now gracing the once bare garden. Perched on a bench beneath the sprawling oak tree, Mariana observed Nicholas as he engaged in playful antics with Santiago, who, at 2.5 years old, darted around with boundless energy, eagerly pursuing a ball. In his embrace, tiny Lucia, just 4 months old, slept soundly, her delicate features a harmonious blend of her parents', Nicholas' azure eyes and Mariana's gentle smile. The journey of pregnancy unfolded amidst meticulous care and a few restless nights, particularly for Nicholas, who found it challenging to keep the shadows of his past at bay. Yet, with each reassuring ultrasound, every flutter from the baby, and each doctor's visit that brought good news, those old scars gradually began to mend. As Lucia entered the world, her cries resonating with life and health, Nicholas felt tears of pure joy streaming down his cheeks while he cradled her for the first time, a joy long absent since the loss of his first child years ago. "Dad, look, I caught the ball!" Santiago exclaimed, dashing towards Nicholas, beaming with pride. "That's a champion!" Nicholas replied, lifting him high into the air and spinning him around, igniting a fit of uncontrollable laughter from the little boy. Mariana beamed at the sight before her. Nicholas's evolution never ceased to amaze her. The stern, solitary figure she once recognized as her superior had blossomed into a devoted father and a nurturing, considerate companion. The mansion, once a cold and lifeless mausoleum, now brimmed with toys, laughter, and the occasional childish tantrum. 3 months had passed since Santiago officially adopted the surname Montenegro, following Nicholas and Mariana's intimate wedding ceremony in the mansion's garden. It was a simple yet emotional affair, with Santiago proudly serving as the ring-bearer and Carmen, a witness to their journey, discreetly wiping away tears during the vows. "What occupies your mind?" Nicholas inquired, drawing near with Santiago perched on his shoulders. "About us," she replied, beaming. "How did we arrive at this moment?" Nicholas settled beside him, gently lowering Santiago, who promptly moved closer to gaze at his little sister with the familiar curiosity he always displayed towards her. "At times, it feels like a dream," Nicholas admitted, wrapping an arm around Mariana's shoulders. "After the loss of my first child, I dedicated my life to work, believing that love and family were not meant for me." Mariana leaned her head against his shoulder, inhaling the comforting scent she cherished deeply. "I was convinced it would always be Santiago and me against the world," she continued, "particularly after her father left us." Santiago, disinterested in the grown-up talk, had gone back to chasing his ball, relishing the vastness of the garden. "If someone had said to me 2 years ago that this would be my life," Nicholas reflected, observing his adopted son at play and his biological daughter resting in the embrace of the woman he cherished. "You wouldn't have believed it," Mariana finished, fully aware of his unspoken thoughts. "No," he concurred, pressing a gentle kiss to her lips, "but I wouldn't trade her for anything." Their life was far from flawless. They navigated the inquisitive and occasionally spiteful gazes of the elite circles in which Nicholas operated, enduring the subtle jabs about the maid who ensnared the wealthy man. Carmen recounted how some of Nicholas' old friends hinted that Mariana was merely interested in their wealth, or how whispers circulated about Santiago not being a genuine Montenegro. Yet, Nicholas astonished everyone, including Mariana, with his complete disregard for such opinions. The man who had previously been so preoccupied with appearances and his business standing now unequivocally demonstrated that his family took precedence over all else. He had cut back on his work hours, assigned tasks to others, and reshaped his life to ensure he was there for every significant moment. "Do you recall the day we first met?" Mariana inquired unexpectedly. "When you discovered me with Santiago in the kitchen, I was convinced you would dismiss me immediately." Nicholas smiled, recalling that pivotal moment that altered the trajectory of their lives. "Back then," he acknowledged, "I only perceived one downside. Little did I know I was on the brink of my redemption." Lucia stirred in Mariana's embrace, her blue eyes fluttering open as she surveyed her surroundings with that unique wonder only infants can convey. Nicholas reached out a finger, which the little girl grasped with unexpected vigor. "I believe we saved each other," Mariana murmured gently. "You provided us with a sanctuary, and we teach you the essence of love." Santiago dashed back, this time with a flower in his hand that he joyfully presented to his mother. Nicholas hoisted him onto his lap, perfecting the family portrait. Life had woven a complex tapestry for both of them. The threads of pain, loss, and loneliness had left their marks, yet they had also equipped them to see and cherish joy when it emerged in the most unexpected corners, between a far-off employer and his devoted housekeeper, between a man hesitant to embrace love anew and a woman yearning for stability for her child. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Nicholas gazed at his family and grasped a simple yet profound truth. This was the life she never knew she desired, yet now found impossible to envision without. Santiago, weary from endless play, nestled against Nicholas's chest, while Lucia yawned softly in her mother's embrace. Bound by the love that had emerged from the remnants of their difficult histories, the family they never anticipated creating gazed at the sunset, aware that the morrow would usher in fresh challenges, new delights, and, above all, a love that would deepen with every day spent together. Did the love story of Mariana and Nicholas resonate with you? It's a tale where fate unites two individuals from vastly different backgrounds through little Santiago, showing that love has the power to mend even the most profound scars and connect disparate lives. If this narrative of second chances struck a chord with you, please remember to like, comment, and share it with someone special who also believes in love's transformative nature. We'd love to hear in the comments where you're experiencing this beautiful story from, and if you're interested in more content like this. If you've grown fond of the characters as we have, consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss our upcoming tales that are sure to evoke sighs, laughter, and perhaps a tear or two. From which part of the world are you joining us today?
The Paris scandal, and the hospital secret. What she did after the DNA test shocked everyone. Subscribe now, and hit that like button. If you believe that sometimes the most silent revenge is the loudest, let me know in the comments. What would you do if you caught your spouse cheating while you were at your lowest? The champagne was a golden blur in the crystal flute, a shimmering dance of bubbles ascending towards the iconic Parisian night. On the terrace of a ridiculously expensive restaurant, overlooking the dazzling Eiffel Tower, Julian Vance, a man who thought he had it all, raised his glass. "To us," he murmured to the beautiful blonde across from him, the sound lost in the melody of a distant violin. At that exact, horrifying moment, thousands of miles away under the heavy, humid sky of Miami, the only sound Amara Reyes could hear was the faint, weak cry of her daughter and the frantic screech of her own tires on the asphalt. She was driving, one hand gripping the wheel, the other desperately checking the feverish neck of Luna, her 6-year-old. Luna's tiny body was trembling, her lips dry, and every whimper was a knife turning in Amara's chest. Her husband's absence was a cold, glaring hole in the passenger seat. An unavoidable business trip, Julian had lied. 2, maybe 3 days, closing a massive deal in New York. The lie now echoed in Amara's mind, heavy as an anvil. Amara burst through the automatic emergency room doors, a hurricane of desperation, clutching her daughter. "Help! Please, my daughter is burning up!" The hospital world became a blur of white coats and the sterile, nauseating smell of disinfectant. Luna was rushed inside, and Amara was left leaning against the cold hallway wall, her hands shaking, swallowed by a solitude that wasn't new. She remembered every missed birthday, every Christmas when he claimed late hours, only for her to later discover his emergency had a name, an address, and a generous neckline. But the most crushing memory was waking up alone after her own emergency appendectomy, an empty room, a wilted bouquet, and a hasty note. "Get well, darling. Duty calls." Duty? His duty was to the thrill of the chase, to the validation of other women, to the construction of a parallel life where he was the irresistible hero. Her role was the understanding wife, the guardian of the perfect home, the fool who always forgave. Do you think Amara's years of forgiveness came from love or from the fear of facing the truth about her marriage? Share your thoughts below. The truth on a TV screen and the shattered glass. The profound exhaustion that finally hit Amara wasn't physical. It was an exhaustion of the soul. She sat by Luna's bed, holding her tiny hand, the rhythmic beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor, the soundtrack to her vigil. Beep! The day she found a jeweler's receipt for a necklace she never received. Beep! The scent of another woman's perfume on his jacket. Beep, beep, beep. The symphony of her broken marriage. At one point, walking past the waiting room, a news channel report about tourism flashed on a screen. Images of the Eiffel Tower danced on the glass. For a second, Amara's heart froze. It was a premonition, a cold, irrational dread. "No, he's in New York," she told herself, shaking off the thought. That's what he said. The first light of morning filtered into the room. Amara hadn't slept. She was a woman hardened by years of silent abandonment. She looked at her hands, shaking. Slightly, yes. But they were the hands of a woman who was the rock of her daughter's life. She wasn't weak. Then, her friend Clara called, her voice a mix of concern and hesitation. "Amara, I know you're busy, but are you okay? I'm at the hospital with Luna. Why?" A long, agonizing pause. "Amara, someone we know, Patricia, posted photos on Instagram. She's in Paris. And? Well, she tagged a few people. Julian is with her." The world stopped. Paris. Not New York. With her, the mistress he swore he'd left behind 6 months ago. The photo Amara needed to see. "Send it," she commanded, her voice cold as steel. The notification arrived. She opened the image. There he was, Julian, smiling the same smile he gave her in family photos. He was embracing a dazzling blonde woman. In the background, unmistakable, the Eiffel Tower glowed. The caption read, "Parisian nights with the best company." He wasn't just cheating. He was publicly humiliating her, showcasing his betrayal like a trophy. The woman who forgave died right there, in that sterile hospital room. In her place, a new woman was born. One forged in solitude, baptized by the cruelest betrayal. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She took a single, precise screenshot of the post, including the profile name, the date, and the shameless caption. Every tap on the screen was a strategic move. The queen had just been cornered, and a cornered queen doesn't surrender. She attacks. If you're hooked, give this video a thumbs up, and let's get into the main event, the unexpected face from the past. Amara saved the photo and looked at her daughter. Luna's serene face was her anchor. Everything, from this moment on, would be for her. She was going to break free, not with a scandal, but with strategy. Absorbed in her cold calculations, she barely noticed the door open. A man in a white coat entered, holding a medical chart. He had a sure stance, slightly messy dark hair, and a distinct familiarity. "Good morning, I'm Dr. Sterling, the pediatrician covering Luna's case," the calm professional voice said. Amara turned, ready with a monosyllabic reply, but the words died in her throat. The world spun again. It couldn't be. "Ethan," she whispered, the name a ghost from her past. The doctor stopped abruptly, his professional gaze dissolving into genuine shock. Amara Miller," he replied, using her maiden name, a name she hadn't heard in a decade. "Dr. Ethan Sterling." He wasn't just a doctor. He was her first real love, the man she planned a future with before Julian existed, and the man she had briefly, intensely reconnected with a few years into her miserable marriage with Julian. That brief, stolen romance was her secret, her buried truth. Luna was just a baby then, and when Julian came back with his tearful promises, Amara, terrified of uncertainty, had cut off Ethan abruptly. Now he stood there, the pediatrician, the man who was her bandage, and whom she had discarded. "Pedro, I didn't know you worked here," she stammered, flushing with shame. He quickly regained his composure. "I'm the chief of pediatrics. Been in Miami for 5 years. He forced a tense smile. "The world is small." He turned to Luna. "So, this is your daughter." He checked Luna with a tenderness that tore at Amara's heart. "She will be fine. We'll keep her for observation." Then came the inevitable question. "Where is her father? I need his signature on some consent forms." "He's traveling," she said, the lie tasting bitter. "Business." Ethan looked up from the chart, his brown eyes locking onto hers. He didn't say anything, but Amara saw it. He didn't believe her. He knew her too well. He remembered the woman who had cried in his arms over another man's lies. "I understand," he finally said. "In that case, your signature is enough. I'll be back later. Anything, Amara." He emphasized the last word. The gaze he gave her wasn't that of a doctor to a patient's mother. It was the look of a man who saw through her facade. The game had definitively begun. Do you think Ethan's reappearance was a coincidence, or was it destiny giving Amara a second chance? The final strike. Divorce and DNA. Ethan became her silent ally. He brought her coffee, sped up Luna's tests, and, most importantly, reminded her that she was more than Julian's wife or Luna's mother. He validated her pain without judgment. "You're not an idiot, Amara. You were loyal. You tried to save your family. The fault is not with the one who tries to fix things, but with the one who repeatedly breaks them." With Luna safely home, the trap was set. The front door clicked open. Julian's voice, falsely jovial, echoed through the house. "Darling, I'm back." He entered, dragging a designer suitcase, his face boasting a tan that was certainly not from New York. Amara, sitting calmly on the sofa, regarded him with glacial composure. "Welcome back. Her voice was devoid of emotion. Was the trip to Paris productive? Julian froze. Panic flashed in his eyes before being replaced by practiced indignation. Paris! What are you talking about? I was in New York in endless meetings. She cut him off. Don't touch me. Amara flipped her phone. The photo, Julian, the mistress, the Eiffel Tower, was his irrefutable proof. I didn't call you because I don't need you, she said, rising. Neither do I, nor does she. We never needed you. She tossed a large manila envelope onto the coffee table. This arrived today. Julian ripped it open. His eyes scanned the document. A divorce petition. Divorce? Are you crazy? After everything I've given you? You're wrong, Amara replied, a humorless smile touching her lips. You seem to forget how your fortune began. That initial, substantial investment 12 years ago that saved your company and made it what it is today? That money wasn't yours, Julian. It was my inheritance. I believed in you, and I have the transfer documents, all archived and authenticated. My lawyer thinks that constitutes a substantial part of the company's assets. It seems you actually built your empire with my money, she continued, ruthless. And there's more. We have a complete file. Dates, places, names, including the trip to Angra on our anniversary, and the conference in Rio that coincided with my surgery. All documented. Julian's face was this color of ash. He was cornered. He threatened war and vowed to destroy her. Amara simply stood there, watching the man she'd once loved implode. The battle was declared. But for the first time, she wasn't scared. She was ready. The courtroom truth. In the courthouse, Julian's lawyer launched a vicious attack, painting Amara as unstable and unfit, even citing Luna's recent hospitalization, conveniently omitting Julian's Parisian vacation. Then came the final, cruel blow. Julian demanded unilateral custody of Luna and, in a breathtaking act of malice, asked for alimony from Amara. He wanted to humiliate her utterly. Ms. Reyes, do you have anything to say about this petition? The judge asked. Amara rose with the dignity of a queen about to make her final move. Yes, Your Honor, I do. Mr. Vance bases his entire petition on one fundamental premise, that he is Luna's father. He uses this supposed paternity as an instrument to punish me, to wound me in the cruelest way imaginable. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. He fights for revenge, not for love, and I can prove it. She presented a second envelope. Your Honor, I would like to submit this document as evidence. It is the result of a DNA test conducted in secret last week. The judge read the document. His stoic face broke into an expression of profound shock. He looked from Amara to Julian, whose face was a mask of confusion and fury. 10 years ago, Julian. Amara's voice was clear and steady. When you first betrayed me, I left. I reconnected with someone from my past, a man I had loved. We had a brief, significant affair. Luna, Your Honor, was born 9 months after that romance. As the DNA test conclusively proves, Julian Vance is not her biological father. The revelation was a vacuum that sucked all the air and all the arrogance out of the room. Julian Vance, the man who neglected his daughter but used her name to wound, was not her father. The father, Amara concluded, her voice softer, is the doctor who cared for her in the hospital a few weeks ago. Dr. Ethan Sterling. The universe has a dark sense of humor, doesn't it? The man who brought her into the world in secret was the same man who saved her, while her father celebrated in Paris. Julian collapsed in his chair. Not a physical collapse, but an implosion of the soul. He wasn't the betrayed husband. He was the fool, the deceived man, whose daughter was the fruit of a momentary love with another man. The judge banged the gavel. In light of the evidence, Mr. Vance's petition for custody and alimony is rendered null and void. This hearing is adjourned. Amara walked out of the courtroom. She didn't feel euphoria. She felt peace. The peace of a profound, costly liberation. Across the street, Ethan was waiting. He didn't approach. He just watched her. A nearly imperceptible nod. A silent acknowledgement that her battle was over. Amara smiled. A genuine smile for the first time in years. She got into the car where her mother was waiting with Luna, who was drawing, oblivious to the earthquake that had just redefined her life. "It's over, sweetie," Amara whispered, hugging her daughter tight. "What's over, Mommy?" Luna asked, looking up with her big, warm brown eyes. Ethan's eyes. "The sad part of the story, my love. Now, we start writing the happy ending." The woman who walked out of that courthouse was no longer a victim. She was the author of her own destiny, victorious, embracing her one true love, her daughter. Meaningful conclusion and call to action. This story isn't just about a plot twist. It's about reclaiming your truth. Amara's journey teaches us that the greatest strength is not in fighting the external enemy, but in having the courage to face the painful, long-held secret within. She chose to dismantle her entire life to build something authentic for herself and her daughter. What is the one toxic thing in your life you need to let go of to start writing your own happy ending? Tell me your answer in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. We wish you a beautiful week full of strength and blessings. Would you like me to translate another story, or perhaps help you outline the next chapter of Amara and Luna's new life? Chapter 2: The Second Chance and the Silent Ally. Don't miss any moment of Amara's journey. Subscribe now and hit that like button. If you believe in second chances, especially when the truth sets you free, what do you think Amara's priority should be? Focusing on her career or rebuilding her relationship with Ethan? Let me know in the comments. The cozy apartment and the weaving threads life after the courtroom felt like stepping out of a tempest and finding sunshine. Amara had moved into a smaller, cozier apartment in a quiet Miami neighborhood. It was a drastic change from Julian's golden cage, but for her and Luna, it brought a true sense of freedom and safety. Luna, though young, felt the shift. She no longer asked, "Where is Daddy?" Instead, she was absorbed in drawing colorful pictures of her new family, just the two of them, and sometimes a figure in a white coat smiling. While the lawyers handled the complex asset division, made less stressful for Amara thanks to the inheritance evidence, Amara poured her energy into launching her own small consulting firm. This focus was the perfect antidote to the emptiness she once felt. As for Ethan, their connection was both strained and beautiful. He called frequently to check on Luna, always "Doctor," but his conversations with Amara inevitably lingered. She couldn't forget his eyes in the hospital, eyes that saw through her pain and betrayal. One afternoon, Amara was struggling to assemble a new bookcase, a task Julian had always insisted she wasn't capable of, when her phone rang. It was Ethan. "Sorry to call unannounced." His voice was hesitant. "I was just checking Luna's chart, making sure everything is stable." "She's doing great." Amara chuckled lightly, her hand still busy with a screwdriver. "Thank you. I'm currently wrestling with this bookshelf. I swear the instructions are written in an alien language." There was a brief silence. Then Ethan spoke. "I have a short evening shift, but I could swing by for a bit, if you'd like." Amara paused. She looked at the screwdriver in her hand. She could say no. She could maintain the wall of separation she'd built for years. But then she remembered the feeling of genuine kindness, of non-judgmental care. "Well, all right, Dr. Sterling," she replied, her voice softer than she intended. "I'll treat you to pizza." Midnight confessions. Over cold coffee. Ethan arrived in a simple t-shirt, not a lab coat. and the bookshelf was perfectly assembled in under 10 minutes. Luna was already asleep, and they sat in the kitchen, sharing cold pizza and coffee. To be honest, I didn't just come by to check a medical chart, Ethan admitted, looking her straight in the eye. I know, Amara said, feeling strangely relieved that the truth was out. Amara, I've thought about you a lot, he sighed. About what happened, both in the past, and why you went back to Julian after those 2 weeks. I was afraid, she confessed. Terrified. Terrified of being a single mother. Terrified of losing financial security. Terrified of the chaos of divorce. Julian. He was a fake safe harbor. He convinced me that stability was more important than happiness. And I was the storm, Ethan offered with a sad smile. No, you were the truth, Amara corrected him. You were the truth I didn't dare face. I used you as a painkiller. I was terrible, Ethan. It's okay, Ethan said, lightly touching her hand. A fleeting touch that lasted only a second, but burned away the loneliness in her heart. I was angry too. But when I saw you and Luna in the hospital, I just saw you, the exhausted woman fighting alone. I knew I couldn't stand by and watch you from afar again. And Luna, Amara started, but trailed off. Ethan nodded. She's a miracle, Amara. She's living proof that there was a moment between us. A moment that was real, not a vendetta, not a betrayal. It was love. He looked at her, his gaze intense. We don't have to try to be a family right away. We just need to learn to be friends for Luna's sake. She is my daughter, and I want to be a part of her life. And if you allow it, I also want to be a part of your life, Amara. With all the truths, no secrets. They talked until dawn that night, not about romantic promises, but about responsibility, medicine, good books, and past mistakes. It wasn't a moment of passion. It was a moment of mending. A foundation stronger than anything Julian had ever promised. Do you believe that Amara and Ethan's decision to start over as friends is the right way to protect Luna? New dawn, and the final choice. Weeks passed. Ethan remained Dr. Sterling to Luna, but he became the trusted ally to Amara. He picked Luna up from school when Amara was busy with meetings, took her to the park, and spent evenings helping Luna with homework, under Amara's watchful eye. Julian, after the shocking truth was revealed, practically vanished. He was still engaged in legal battles over assets, and losing, but he no longer showed interest in Luna, the most eloquent proof that she had never been his goal. One Sunday afternoon, Amara, Luna, and Ethan were at the beach. Luna was beaming as Ethan carried her, running along the water's edge. Amara watched them, the two most important men in her life. One, though not the one she loved, taught her the most expensive lesson about deceit. The other, the one she missed, had returned. As Luna was engrossed in building a sandcastle, Ethan came and sat beside Amara. He handed her a shell. Here, he said. Found it right by the water. It's not perfect, but it's beautiful. Amara smiled, taking the shell. Like our life, perhaps? Maybe so, he said. Amara, I have to ask you this. Are you sure you want this? Everything. With me. Not because of Luna. Not because of sweet revenge, but for yourself? Amara looked out at the ocean, taking a deep breath of salt and freedom. She looked back at what had happened. The pain, the betrayal, the loneliness. But she also saw her strength, her resurgence. She didn't need a man to save her anymore. She had saved herself. I am sure, she said, turning to Ethan. Her eyes no longer held any fear or doubt. I want this. I want to start over, not with the burden of the past, but with the truth of the present. And I want you here, Ethan. Ethan smiled. It was a radiant, genuine smile. He took her hand, this time not letting go. We'll do this, he murmured, starting tomorrow. Not as an arrangement, but as a choice. They sat there, watching Luna, their daughter, laughing with the waves. Meaningful conclusion and call to action. Amara's story teaches us that happiness is not a decree of fate, but a courageous choice. She dared to tear down the false safety, face the most painful truth, and write her own life script. Ethan's reappearance wasn't a miracle, but a reward for her bravery. The greatest strength lies in the ability to let go of what hurt you and believe that you deserve genuine love, even if it arrives late. Leave a comment, sharing the most valuable lesson you took from this chapter. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support Amara on her new journey. Would you like me to continue writing the next developments in Amara, Ethan, and Luna's relationship? Or would you prefer to move on to a brand new story with different characters and settings? Chapter 3. Disclosure and the first test. Subscribe now. And hit that like button if you think true love is worth fighting for, even after years apart. In the comments, tell us, what kind of public backlash do you think Julian will try to create when he finds out about Ethan? The first date, and the elephant in the room. The first date wasn't dinner at an expensive French restaurant or a moonlit walk on the beach. It was a Tuesday evening trip to the grocery store. Amara and Ethan had dropped Luna off at her grandmother's and were navigating the brightly lit aisles, a shopping list in hand. "Do we really need the organic kale?" Ethan asked, pushing the cart, a playful skepticism in his eyes. "It's a metaphor for our life now, Ethan," Amara countered, tossing the kale into the cart. "It's healthy, it's necessary, and it's slightly bitter. But we choose it." They laughed. It was easy, honest, and comfortable. They were two adults rebuilding a foundation, not just on old attraction, but on shared responsibility and brutal honesty. But as they stood in the checkout line, the elephant in the room loomed. "We need to talk about Julian and the outside world," Amara said, her voice dropping. "He's been silent, but I know him. He's plotting. The divorce proceedings are public record, but the DNA test, that's our secret weapon. If he finds out about us, about the reunion of the wife and the secret baby daddy, he'll try to spin it as a massive scandal to discredit me in the settlement case." Ethan gently took her hand, running his thumb over her knuckles. "He's going to find out, Amara. I work at a major hospital. You're starting a high-profile consultancy. Miami is a small town of rumors. We need to control the narrative." "How?" "We disclose it on our own terms," Ethan said, his voice firm, the leadership of the chief of pediatrics evident. "We tell the important people first. We tell your friend, Clara, who stood by you. We tell Julian's lawyer, through your lawyer, that this is a legitimate relationship that developed after your separation, long after the initial betrayal. We show them a timeline that proves we aren't hiding." His plan was a strategy, not a cover-up. It was a reflection of the new Amara, proactive, clear, and unafraid of the truth. Do you agree with Ethan's strategy of proactive disclosure, or should they have waited until the divorce was finalized? Comment your advice. The disclosure and the whisper network. They started with Clara. The next day, over coffee, Amara showed Clara the new apartment, talking about Luna, about the consulting firm, and about Ethan. "Wait, Dr. Sterling." Clara nearly dropped her mug. "The pediatrician? The cute one with the serious eyes? But how?" Amara laid out the timeline, the college history, the brief, intense reconnection during the separation, the final return to Julian out of fear, and the DNA test. Clara was speechless, then burst into relieved laughter. "Amara, you are incredible. You not only outsmarted that snake Julian, but you found the father of your child, who happens to be a ridiculously kind and accomplished man. This is not revenge, this is cosmic justice." However, news in Miami travels at the speed of light. Ethan's colleagues, Amara's new business contacts, And eventually, the legal teams all started to hear the whispers. Julian's reaction was immediate and predictable. His lawyer, the slick-haired man from the courtroom, filed an emergency motion accusing Amara of collusion and moral depravity, claiming she had planned the entire affair to defraud Julian and steal his resources. The media, always hungry for scandal involving wealth and betrayal, picked up the story. While they couldn't name Ethan publicly yet, headlines started hinting at the secret lover doctor in the high-profile divorce case. Amara was rattled. She was ready for Julian's hatred, but not the public scrutiny. She found herself scrolling through news comments, feeling the old fear creeping in. "They're calling me a gold digger," she whispered to Ethan one evening, tears welling up. "They're saying I tricked both of you." Ethan held her close, stroking her hair. "They are irrelevant, Amara. The judge knows the truth. Your lawyer knows the truth. Luna knows the truth, that she is loved. And I know the truth. This is Julian's last desperate move. He's using public opinion because he lost in court. Don't give him your focus." He pulled away slightly, looking into her eyes. "We need to make our first public statement, not to the media, but to Julian himself. The unified front." Amara's lawyer, an astute woman named Rachel, called an emergency meeting. Julian and his legal team were present, arrogant, and ready for a fight. Julian looked at Amara with pure malice. "The whore and the doctor. You really think a judge will grant you a single cent when he sees the depravity of your actions?" Amara didn't flinch. She took a slow, deep breath, remembering Ethan's words. "Control the narrative." "Julian," Amara began, her voice calm and strong. "We are here to discuss a fair settlement, not to listen to your emotional outbursts. However, since you insist on bringing up Dr. Sterling, I have a statement." She paused, making sure every eye in the room was on her. "Dr. Sterling and I have begun a relationship that is honest, transparent, and was initiated well after my final separation from you. And since you continue to make outrageous claims, here is the one truth you seem to conveniently forget. You are not Luna's father. The DNA evidence is conclusive. You have no legal standing, no emotional claim, and no moral authority to comment on my life, my relationships, or my daughter's well-being." She didn't stop there. She leaned forward, delivering the final blow. "I will not be manipulated by you anymore. The time you waste on this character assassination is time you are not preparing for the next round of litigation, where we will be scrutinizing every financial transaction you made during the duration of our marriage, including the funds you spent on your Parisian vacation. I have nothing to hide, Julian. Do you?" The words landed like a physical blow. Julian was left spluttering, his furious face turning a dark red. His lawyer frantically tried to interrupt, but the damage was done. Amara, backed by the undeniable truth, had completely disarmed his attempt at public shame. She had used his own tactics against him, but this time, with integrity. Do you admire Amara's courage in facing Julian head-on? Or do you think silence would have been a better legal strategy? Let us know in the comments. When the meaningful conclusion, the gift of truth, the scandal soon died down. Julian, realizing his character attacks were useless against the DNA test, retreated to focus on salvaging his remaining fortune. Amara and Ethan, having faced their first public test together, emerged stronger. They weren't just a couple. They were a unified front, built on shared truth and mutual respect. The greatest gift Amara received wasn't the settlement money, but the ability to stand next to the man she truly loved, without lies or secrets, and watch him embrace the daughter that was meant to be theirs all along. Their love story wasn't perfect. It was beautifully messy, forged in the ashes of betrayal and tempered by truth. What advice would you give Amara and Ethan as they try to blend their professional and personal lives? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the final chapter, where we explore the beautiful future of Amara, Ethan, and Luna. Would you like to write the final, emotional chapter where Amara and Ethan get their happily ever after? Or should we introduce a new conflict or character? Chapter 4. The Home Forged in Truth. This is the final chapter of Amara's journey. Subscribe and like this video if you believe in their happily ever after. What is the most touching moment between Ethan and Luna so far? Share your thoughts in the comments. 6 months later, finding their rhythm. 6 months had passed since the tense courtroom showdown and Amara's fearless stand against Julian. The divorce was finally finalized. Amara walked away with a fair portion of her inherited wealth, and Julian was left with a tarnished reputation and the bitter reality of his isolation. He attempted no further contact. Amara and Ethan, however, were thriving. They weren't just a couple. They were a well-oiled machine of 3. Amara's consultancy was booming, fueled by her resilience and sharp business sense. Ethan, seeing her success, was her biggest cheerleader. They had established a beautiful, chaotic rhythm. Ethan handled the school run on his morning off. Amara worked late when he had a night shift, and their evenings were sacred, spent reading to Luna, cooking, usually ordering takeout when Ethan was in charge, and simply being present. For Luna, the presence of Ethan was the most natural thing in the world. The shift from Dr. Sterling to Dad happened organically one rainy Sunday afternoon while they were building a massive fort out of blankets. Luna simply looked up, her little hands covered in pillow fluff, and asked, "Are you my real dad now, Ethan?" Ethan, pausing, his heart in his throat, looked at Amara, who just gave him a gentle nod. "Yes, sweetie," Ethan whispered, pulling her into a big hug. "I always have been." It wasn't a dramatic reveal. It was a simple confirmation of a love she had always known. If you had to name their blended family, what name would you choose for Amara, Ethan, and Luna? Let me know in the comments. The proposal and the cliff's edge. One year after Amara walked out on Julian for the last time, Ethan planned a trip. Not to a flashy resort, but to a quiet, scenic spot on the North Carolina coast, a place where they had spent a brief, happy weekend during their initial reconnection years ago. It was sunset. They stood on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, the vast blue mirroring the expansive future before them. "This is where it all started, didn't it?" Amara murmured, leaning into him. "A lot of mistakes were made right after this, but this view, it always reminded me of hope. It reminded me of what I lost," Ethan corrected gently. He turned to face her, his eyes deep and serious. "Amara, when I first met you, I was too young to fight for you. When I met you again, I was too angry to understand you. Now I see you for the first time, a powerful, brave, incredibly kind woman." He took her hands. "You didn't need me to rescue you. You rescued yourself. You taught me the difference between a life of comfort and a life of truth." Ethan didn't get down on one knee. Instead, he pulled out a simple, beautiful ring, a sapphire, Luna's birthstone, surrounded by tiny diamonds. "This isn't a proposal for an arrangement or a title," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "This is a request to officially forge our truths together. Amara Hayes, will you choose me? Will you choose us? Will you choose to make this little chaotic, beautiful family permanent?" Amara didn't hesitate. Tears streamed down her face, not of sorrow, but of absolute release and joy. "Yes," she choked out. "Ethan Sterling, I choose us. I choose the truth." Do you think Amara and Ethan's relationship is stronger because they started with betrayal and ended with honesty? Give us a like if you agree. A simple wedding and a lasting legacy. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair held in their own backyard, now lovingly transformed into a lush garden. Luna, wearing a tiny white dress, served as the flower girl and the official ring bearer, a role she took very seriously. Julian was a ghost of the past. The only publicity they had was a single photo shared on Amara's new consultancy website, showing the three of them, a happy, ordinary family. In her final vows, Amara looked at Ethan, then at Luna standing proudly beside him. I promised myself a long time ago that I would never again settle for a life that looked perfect, but felt empty, Amara vowed, her voice ringing with conviction. Ethan, you and Luna are my proof that when you dare to face the ugly truth, you make room for beautiful, profound happiness. You are my home, not a haven from the storm, but the steady ground I stand on, even when the storm rages. Ethan's vows were equally moving, promising to always lead with honesty, love, and the understanding that Luna was the precious center of their universe. The story of Amara Hayes became more than just a scandal. It became an urban legend in Miami about the woman who lost a decade to a lie, only to reclaim it all with one brave choice. It was a story of a woman who chose self-respect over social status, and in doing so, found a genuine family. Meaningful conclusion. Rewrite your life. Amara's journey from a naive college student to a betrayed wife, and finally, to a self-made woman and loving partner, is a powerful reminder. Your past mistakes do not define your future potential. She didn't just escape a bad marriage. She reclaimed her child's true identity and chose a life of authenticity. Her greatest victory wasn't the settlement. It was the ability to look at her daughter and her husband and know, without a shadow of a doubt, that the family they had built was entirely based on love and the unshakable foundation of truth. What is the one takeaway from Amara's story that you will apply to your own life? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share this incredible story and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring tales of courage and transformation. Chapter 5. The Uninvited Shadow. Subscribe now and hit that like button if you know that even after a happy ending, life always brings new challenges. What do you predict is the biggest future threat to Amara and Ethan's peace? Share your predictions in the comments. The honeymoon phase and the hospital politics. Life settled into a rhythm of deep, comfortable contentment after the wedding. Amara's consultancy, now rebranded with a focus on ethical business practices, was wildly successful. Ethan, promoted to Director of Pediatric Services, was balancing his demanding job with his devoted role as a father and husband. Their biggest challenge was logistics, balancing Ethan's unpredictable hospital schedule with Amara's travel. But they handled it with communication and humor, often leaving sticky notes with schedule updates all over the refrigerator. However, the honeymoon phase was about to be tested, not by an external threat like Julian, but by an internal one within Ethan's professional world. A new doctor, Dr. Serena Hayes, was hired as the Vice Director of Pediatric Services, a brilliant, ambitious woman with a reputation for sharp elbows and a deep desire for Ethan's role. Dr. Hayes was immediately friendly to Amara, praising her resilience and business acumen. But behind the pleasant facade, a different kind of tension began to simmer. Ethan started working longer hours. He was constantly stressed, and his usual calm demeanor frayed. When Amara asked what was wrong, he was vague. "It's just Dr. Hayes," he sighed one evening, massaging his temples. "She's aggressive. She challenges my decisions in meetings, questions my budget, and generally makes every day a political battle. She wants my job, and she's making it obvious." "Well, you're better at your job than anyone," Amara reassured him. "Don't let her play mind games." "It's more than games," Ethan muttered. "She subtly suggested today that my focus on Luna and the time I take off for family matters might be impacting my commitment to the hospital. She's hinting at my priorities. Amara's blood ran cold. This felt like Julian, not infidelity, but the insidious, manipulative attempt to control a man through his professional fears. Have you ever faced a colleague who used personal attacks to gain a professional advantage? How did you handle it? Tell us in the comments. The cold calculation. The situation escalated when Dr. Hayes, knowing Amara had a significant meeting out of town, scheduled a mandatory all-day Saturday audit meeting for Ethan. It was calculated to interrupt their scheduled family weekend. Ethan was furious, but felt trapped. If I miss this, she'll document it as lack of dedication before the board review. I have to go. Amara saw the look of defeat in his eyes, the same defeat she used to feel. She refused to let him succumb to that control. No, you don't, Amara said firmly. You are the director. You are not her subordinate. You are allowing her to frame the narrative, just like Julian did to me. We fight this with strategy, not with obedience. Amara, the business strategist, swung into action. First you go. But you don't go alone, Amara advised. You take a trusted witness. You delegate tasks to prove efficiency, not commitment to unnecessary busy work. Second, and most importantly, you focus on her weakness, which is her ambition. She's brilliant, but she's a known political operator, not a healer. You remind the board why you are the leader, your humanity. Amara dug into her network. She quickly found subtle, verifiable professional complaints about Dr. Hayes' treatment of junior staff at her previous hospital. Not anything illegal, but evidence of a toxic management style. She looked at Ethan. We use this, not to attack her, but to defend your leadership style before she can attack your family focus. We show the board that your compassion is not a weakness, but a strength that makes your department functional and loyal. Do you think Amara's strategic intervention is appropriate, or should Ethan handle his professional battles alone? Share your opinion. The boardroom win. The day of the Saturday meeting arrived. Ethan walked in, armed with data, confidence, and a subtle new strategy. Dr. Hayes was sharp, dissecting the budget and hinting at inefficiencies that could be solved if the director had fewer, outside commitments. She waited for Ethan to defensively explain his schedule. Instead, then stood up. He didn't engage in the attack. Thank you, Dr. Hayes, for your detailed analysis, Ethan began, addressing the full board. I agree that my priority is efficiency. And that is why, in the last 6 months, my department has achieved a 98% staff retention rate and a 15% increase in patient satisfaction, which directly impacts our funding. He continued, his voice resonating with authority. My commitment to my team and my family is not an inefficiency. It's my greatest asset. My staff feels supported, not micromanaged. They see me leave on time to read a bedtime story to my daughter, and they know that the hospital supports a sustainable work-life balance, something that drastically reduces burnout, turnover, and therefore. He then subtly dropped the counter-narrative, referencing the complaints Amara had uncovered. I believe that leadership should be built on trust and compassion, not on fear and forced overtime. A management style that, as we can see in the recent data from other institutions, always leads to higher turnover and lower morale. The board, a mix of businessmen and longtime physicians, looked at Dr. Hayes, who was visibly deflated. Her aggressive, cutthroat approach was immediately contrasted with Ethan's calm, humane leadership. Ethan won the room. He didn't just defend his job. He redefined the definition of commitment and leadership. Later that day, Dr. Hayes was given a firm warning about professional conduct. Her tactics had failed. Meaningful conclusion. The real partnership. Ethan came home that evening, not defeated, but victorious. He walked into the kitchen, where Amara was making cookies with Luna. He didn't say a word about the meeting. He just looked at Amara with profound love and admiration. "I didn't win that. We won that," he whispered to her later, as they watched Luna sleep. "I realized something today. Julian's power came from keeping me silent and isolated. My power comes from having you, my partner, who fights for our truth and reminds me who I am when I forget." Amara smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. Their marriage wasn't about two individuals standing side by side. It was about two veterans of life's wars fighting back to back, using their combined experience to protect the peace they had earned. The shadow was gone, replaced by the light of their unbreakable partnership. What new challenge do you think they should face next? Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on Amara and Ethan's life. Chapter 6, Luna's Legacy. Subscribe now and hit that like button. If you believe that children are resilient and always find their way to the truth, what advice would you give Amara and Ethan about explaining Luna's unique family history to her? Share your parenting insights in the comments. The seeds of inquiry. 2 years flew by. Luna was now 9, a curious, bright, and deeply loved third grader. Her life was stable, anchored by Amara's quiet strength and Ethan's playful devotion. The memory of Julian was a distant, bad dream, and her reality was her parents and their cozy, sun-filled home. However, the world always has a way of introducing complexity. One day, Luna came home from school visibly troubled. She sat down at the kitchen table, pushing her homework aside. "Mom, Dad," she started, fiddling with a crayon. "Sarah in my class. She said her mom and dad got married first, and then she was born." Amara and Ethan exchanged a quick, knowing glance. They had always planned to tell Luna the full story, about Julian, the hospital, and the truth of her paternity, at an age when she could process it. It seemed that time had arrived sooner than they anticipated. "Is that how it was for us?" Luna asked, her big brown eyes, so much like Ethan's, fixed on them. "Did you and Mom get married first?" Amara sat next to her, taking her hand. "Sweetie, our story is a little different, and it's also one of the bravest stories there is." They didn't hide the truth. They simplified it, focusing on the feelings. Amara explained that she and Julian were married, but unhappy. She explained the brief time she and Ethan were separated, and the deep love that existed between Amara and Ethan from the very beginning. Ethan focused on the love story. "You weren't a mistake, Luna. You were the reason your mom and I found our way back to the truth. You were born from a moment of pure, honest love, long before we could build this home. And when you were sick, I got to take care of you, which was the greatest gift in the world." Luna listened, absorbed, occasionally asking questions about the logistics of the divorce, but ultimately, she grasped the core message. She was deeply wanted, and her existence was the catalyst for her parents' happiness. Do you think it's better to tell children a complex truth all at once, or in stages? Tell us your approach. The unseen threat. Just as Luna seemed to process her unique origin, a new, unwelcome shadow appeared. Amara began receiving anonymous emails. They weren't threatening, but unsettling. They were photoshopped images. Julian and Amara smiling together from an old Christmas card, overlaid with text asking, "Do you ever miss the real family?" Amara dismissed them as Julian's final, pathetic attempt to lash out. She blocked the sender and deleted the emails. However, one particular email contained something chilling. A photo of Luna, taken covertly while she was playing soccer at the park, accompanied by a single sentence. "She has his eyes, but does she have his money?" Amara's blood turned to ice. This wasn't Julian. He wouldn't risk getting this close, and he certainly wouldn't admit that Luna had Ethan's eyes. This was someone else, someone watching them, and someone focused on the financial aspect of Luna's origin. Amara immediately involved Ethan. They went to the police, but without an explicit threat of violence, the police could only advise heightened security. Amara's lawyer, Rachel, had a theory. Julian's family. Julian's parents were always focused on legacy and wealth, Rachel explained. They despised Amara, but they adored the idea of their grandchild inheriting the family name and money. They were devastated by the DNA test, but they might be trying to prove some financial link or simply harassing you out of spite. The shadow wasn't Julian. It was his family, clinging to a name and a fortune that wasn't theirs to claim. If you were Amara, what non-legal steps would you take immediately to protect your family from anonymous harassment? The unexpected visitor. The harassment peaked when Amara received a formal official letter. It wasn't from a lawyer. It was from a high-profile public relations firm representing the Torres Foundation, Julian's family's charity. The letter was a polite request for a meeting between Amara and Julian's mother, Mrs. Ilara Torres, to discuss a private matter concerning Luna's future. Amara was initially ready to throw the letter away, but Ethan convinced her otherwise. They're using a PR firm, not a legal firm, Amara, Ethan noted. They don't want a lawsuit. They want to control the optics and possibly buy their way back into some form of contact. You are a businesswoman now. Let's treat this as a negotiation, not a fight. Amara agreed, but with one condition. The meeting would be on her turf, in her office, and Ethan would be present. Mrs. Torres arrived, a woman of impeccable, cold elegance. She didn't offer a hug or even a pleasantry. She immediately got down to business. Mrs. Sterling, Mrs. Torres began, ignoring Ethan completely. Luna, though not biologically ours, was raised for years under the Torres name. It is a known fact she possesses significant de facto emotional ties to our family's public narrative. The foundation is willing to set up a substantial, 7-figure trust fund in Luna's name, dedicated to her future education and security, under one condition: occasional monitored visits to ensure her upbringing reflects our family's values, and a promise of silence regarding the DNA test. It was a blatant attempt to buy back control and silence the truth. Amara looked at the cold, calculating woman, then at Ethan, who gave her a nod of encouragement. She smiled, a calm, victorious smile. Mrs. Torres, Amara said, leaning forward. Thank you for the offer. However, my daughter's education and security are already well funded by her parents. And as you noted, Luna has inherited significant values. Those values are honesty, courage, and self-respect, values she learned when her mother chose truth over a fortune. Amara pushed the papers back across the table. We decline your offer. Luna's legacy is not built on your money or your name. It is built on the love of her true father, her true mother, and a foundation of honesty. That truth is worth more than any 7-figure trust fund. Mrs. Torres was stunned. She hadn't been rejected. She had been schooled. She stood up, her face tight with suppressed fury, and left without another word. The Torres shadow was finally, definitively, cast out. Meaningful conclusion. The true inheritance. Amara and Ethan didn't need wealth or status to secure their daughter's future. They secured it with integrity and love. Luna's true inheritance was not Julian's money or the Torres name, but the unbreakable bond of a family built on the difficult, beautiful truth. She would grow up knowing that her existence was the ultimate proof of love conquering fear. What lesson do you think Mrs. Torres learned from Amara in that final confrontation? Don't forget to like and subscribe to see what amazing things Luna does when she grows up.